The Great Hall of Corveth Prime buzzed with voices from dozens of alien species. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for the monthly Galactic Council meeting. At the center of the massive chamber, a single human stood at the speaking platform. Hyunwoo Kim adjusted his simple black suit and looked up at the towering alien delegates surrounding him. His calm face showed no fear, even though he was the only human in a room full of beings who could crush his species without much effort. The other delegates whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like grinding metal or singing winds. Honored members of the council, Hyunwoo began, his voice echoing through the chamber. I come before you today with an important message from Earth and the Human Colonial Administration. High above him, in the most important seats, sat the Velkari delegation. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and large black eyes. Their empire controlled 47 star systems and commanded the respect of nearly every species in the galaxy. High Counselor Velnara, their leader, barely looked down at the human speaker. The Velkari Empire has announced plans to establish a shipping route through human space, Hyunwoo continued. While we understand the economic benefits such a route would provide, we must inform this council that any unauthorized passage through human territory will be considered an act of war. A wave of chittering, buzzing, and mechanical sounds swept through the chamber as the delegates translated his words. Many species had heard humans make bold statements before, but this seemed especially brave for a species that controlled only one star system. Commander Thexvor, the Velkari military strategist, leaned forward in his seat. His forearms moved in a gesture that other Velkari recognized as amusement. Did the human just threaten the Velkari Empire? He asked his assistant in their native tongue. High Counselor Velnara raised one of her hands and the chamber fell silent. When she spoke, her voice was like cold metal scraping against stone. Ambassador Kim, your message has been noted. However, I must remind you that the proposed route passes through empty space that humans merely claim to control. Your species has never demonstrated the ability to enforce such claims. Hyunwoo nodded politely. With respect, High Counselor, our claims are recognized by galactic law. More importantly, they are backed by our determination to defend what is ours. The Velkari delegation broke into what sounded like laughter, though it resembled the sound of breaking glass. Other species joined in with their own versions of amusement. The idea of humans, with their tiny fleet and single inhabited world, threatening the mighty Velkari Empire struck them as absurd. Determination is admirable, Velnara replied, but it cannot stop a war fleet. Perhaps humans should focus on more realistic goals, such as expanding beyond your single world. Hyunwoo's expression never changed. We appreciate the advice, High Counselor. However, our position remains unchanged. We strongly advise against entering human space without permission. After the meeting ended, Hyunwoo walked through the corridors of the council building. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as he made his way to the communications center. He had expected this reaction, but protocol required that humans give the warning. Now the real work would begin. Meanwhile, in the Velkari section of the building, Commander Thexvor was reviewing intelligence reports with his team. Holographic displays showed the positions of human ships and installations throughout their small territory. How many military vessels do the humans currently operate? Velnara asked as she entered the briefing room. Our latest count shows approximately 200 ships, Thexvor replied. Most are small patrol craft and cargo vessels with basic weapons. They have perhaps 20 ships that could be considered true warships. And our current fleet strength? 53,000 vessels across all classes, High Counselor. We could deploy 5,000 ships for this operation and barely notice the reduction in our defensive capabilities. Velnara studied the holographic display showing the proposed shipping route. The path would cut through 3 systems that humans claimed as their territory, reducing shipping time by 30%. The economic benefits would be enormous, especially for a species that controlled nearly half the galaxy's trade routes. The humans cannot seriously believe they can stop us, she mused. Intelligence suggests they are hoping other council members will pressure us to respect their territorial claims, Thexvor explained. They lack the military strength to back up their threats, so they rely on diplomacy and galactic law. Galactic law is a luxury for species with the power to enforce it, Velnara said coldly. Schedule Operation Swift Passage for next week. We will send a convoy through human space to demonstrate that their threats mean nothing. Across the galaxy, in the Sol system, Admiral Boram Lee received Hyunwoo's coded transmission from her command center on Luna. The message was brief but clear. The Velkari had rejected the warning and were planning to force passage through human territory within days. Boram had been expecting this news for months. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes held the sharpness of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. She walked to her command console and entered a series of authorization codes. "Computer, activate Protocol Omega," she said quietly. "Protocol Omega activation requires secondary authorization," the computer responded. Boram placed her hand on a scanner and spoke clearly. "Admiral Boram Lee, authorization code 77 Alpha. Activate all defensive measures. This is not a drill." Throughout the Sol system, hidden installations began powering up. Mining stations that appeared to be simple industrial facilities revealed their true nature as fortified weapons platforms. Cargo ships docked at various asteroids and began unloading military equipment that had been disguised as mining supplies for years. The asteroid belt, which most alien species viewed as a collection of worthless rocks, transformed into a three-dimensional minefield. Thousands of automated defense systems came online, their sensors scanning for any ships that might try to pass through human space without permission. On Earth, in the basement levels of the Global Defense Headquarters, technicians worked frantically to coordinate the activation sequence. Years of preparation were finally being put to use. Every human installation beyond Earth's atmosphere had been built with this moment in mind. "Ma'am," one of the technicians called out, "all outer system defenses are now active. Deep space sensors are tracking the Velkari fleet movement toward our territory." Boram nodded grimly. "How long until they reach our outer perimeter?" "Approximately 6 days at their current speed." The Admiral looked at the holographic display showing human space. To most observers, it appeared to be a small, poorly defended region around a single star. They had no idea that humans had spent the last 50 years turning their entire solar system into the most heavily defended fortress in the galaxy. "Send a message to all defense stations," Boram ordered. "Follow engagement protocols exactly. No firing until they cross the boundary, but once they do, show them what humans are really capable of." The trap was set. The Velkari Empire, confident in their overwhelming superiority, was about to learn why humans had survived ice ages, world wars, and countless other disasters. They were about to discover that the most dangerous opponent is not the strongest one, but the one that everyone underestimates. In 6 days, the galaxy would witness the beginning of the shortest and most decisive war in galactic history. The alarm klaxon echoed through Mining Station Delta 7, located in the outer edge of the Kuiper Belt. Commander Minho Park sat in his command chair, watching the sensor displays as 12 Velkari ships approached his position. The ships were sleek and elegant, their hulls gleaming silver against the black of space. "Distance to contact?" Minho asked, his voice calm despite the tension in the room. 30,000 kilometers in closing," replied Chief Tactical Officer Yoonji Choi. She was a young woman with sharp eyes who never seemed to blink when danger approached. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put them through." The main screen flickered and the angular face of a Velkari captain appeared. Captain Zorthek had the typical gray skin and large black eyes of his species, but there was something cold and arrogant in his expression. "Human mining station, this is Captain Zorthek of the Velkari Imperial Fleet. You are operating in space that has been claimed by the Velkari Empire for a new shipping route. You have 1 hour to evacuate this system or you will be removed by force." Minho stood up slowly, smoothing down his simple gray uniform. Behind him, dozens of workers moved about their tasks, apparently unconcerned by the threat. "Captain Zorthek, this is Commander Minho Park of Human Colonial Mining Station Delta 7. You are currently in human territorial space without permission. Under galactic law and human regulations, I must ask you to leave immediately." The Velkari captain's expression shifted to what might have been amusement. "Commander Park, you have 12 ships facing 12 ships. Your vessels appear to be mining equipment and civilian craft. Surely you can see the wisdom in avoiding unnecessary conflict." "I can see many things, Captain," Minho replied. "What I cannot see is any reason to abandon our lawful operations because an unauthorized fleet has entered our space." Through the ship's internal communication system, Minho could hear the sound of heavy machinery moving. To the Velkari, it probably sounded like workers preparing to evacuate. In reality, it was the sound of weapon systems powering up. Young Sunam, the station's head of mining operations, walked onto the bridge carrying what appeared to be a mining scanner. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and a face that had seen years of hard work in the asteroid belt. What the Velkari couldn't know was that Young-Soo had spent 20 years as a Marine before taking this civilian job. "Commander," Young-Soo said quietly, "all mining teams report ready for operations." Minho nodded. The coded language was clear. All military personnel were at their positions and ready for combat. Captain Zorthek's patience was clearly running out. "Commander Park, you have 5 minutes to begin evacuation procedures or we will open fire on your installations." "Captain, I strongly advise against that course of action," Minho said. "Human installations are protected under galactic law, and any attack would be considered an act of war against Earth." "Your planet is 3 billion kilometers away," Zorthek replied. "By the time they learn of this incident, we will have completed our passage and returned to Velkari space." "5 minutes, Commander." The transmission ended and the bridge fell silent for a moment. Yunji looked at her displays where the Velkari ships had formed an attack formation. They clearly expected this to be a simple matter of destroying some mining equipment and moving on. "Orders, sir?" she asked. Minho looked at the tactical display. The Velkari ships were powerful, but they had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that human mining operations were exactly what they appeared to be. "All stations, this is the commander," he announced over the station's communication system. "We are about to demonstrate to our visitors that humans do not respond well to threats. Mining teams, prepare for deep extraction procedures." Throughout the mining station, blast doors opened to reveal rooms that definitely didn't contain mining equipment. What they contained instead were military-grade weapon systems, particle beam arrays, and missile launchers. The asteroid itself had been hollowed out and converted into a fortress, disguised as a simple mining operation. The civilian workers began removing their mining suits to reveal military uniforms underneath. Young-Soo's mining teams were actually 3 companies of elite Marines who had been training for this exact situation for 2 years. "Ma'am, the Velkari ships are powering up their weapons," reported the sensor operator. "Let them fire first," Minho said. "I want this on record." The first Velkari beam struck the outer hull of the mining station. The energy blast was powerful enough to destroy a normal civilian installation, but Delta 7 was far from normal. The beam struck military-grade armor hidden beneath fake mining equipment, causing minimal damage. "That was their mistake," Yunji said with a cold smile. "All weapons target the lead ship. Fire." The asteroid mining station suddenly revealed its true nature. Hidden weapons ports opened across its surface and beams of concentrated energy lanced out toward the Velkari fleet. The first ship, Captain Zorthek's vessel, took multiple hits before its crew realized what was happening. "What the hell are these humans shooting at us with?" Zorthek shouted as his bridge shook from impact. His ship's shields were failing rapidly under the concentrated fire. "Sir, these aren't mining lasers," his tactical officer reported. "These are military-grade particle weapons. The asteroid appears to be heavily fortified." More human ships began appearing from hiding spots among the asteroids. They looked like cargo vessels and mining craft, but they were revealing weapon systems that could challenge military ships. The humans had disguised an entire battle fleet as a civilian mining operation. Young-Soo coordinated the attack from his position on the bridge. "Mining ship Prosperity. Target the Velkari destroyer on the left flank. Cargo hauler New Hope. You have the cruiser trying to retreat." The Velkari had expected to face frightened civilians with mining equipment. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully planned ambush against a hidden military force that had been waiting for them. Captain Zorthek's ship was the first to be destroyed. His last transmission was a desperate warning to the rest of the Velkari fleet. "Retreat! The humans have turned their entire mining operation into a fortress. This is a trap." But it was too late for most of his ships. The human miners had spent months studying Velkari ship designs and tactics. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage. One by one, the elegant silver ships were torn apart by weapons that shouldn't have existed in a simple mining station. Yunji coordinated the defensive. Fire with the precision of someone who had trained for years for this moment. "Focus fire on their engines first," she instructed the other ships. "We want prisoners for intelligence gathering." The battle lasted only 37 minutes. When it was over, 11 Velkari ships had been destroyed, and one badly damaged vessel was limping away from the battle zone. The human mining station had suffered minor damage to its outer hull, and no casualties. Commander Minho opened a channel to the escaping Velkari ship. "This is Commander Park to the surviving Velkari vessel. You are free to leave human space. Please inform your superiors that human mining operations are protected by more than just galactic law." In the wreckage of the battle, Young-Soo and his teams began recovering Velkari survivors and salvaging their technology. Each piece of equipment would be studied to better understand Velkari capabilities. "Sir," Yunji reported, "Admiral Boram is requesting a full battle report." "Tell the Admiral that the outer perimeter held as expected," Minho replied. "The Velkari now know that humans take their territorial claims seriously." As the damaged Velkari ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, its crew carried a message that would shake the Velkari Empire to its core. The humans were not the helpless miners they had appeared to be. They were soldiers, and they had been waiting. The war had begun, and the Velkari had already lost their first battle to an enemy they had completely underestimated. The question now was whether they would learn from this mistake, or whether their arrogance would lead them to make even bigger ones. In the depths of space, more human mining stations powered up their hidden weapons and waited for the next wave of visitors, who didn't understand that humans never did anything the simple way. High Counselor Velnara stared at the holographic report floating above her command table. The numbers made no sense. 11 ships destroyed, 1 barely escaped, 0 human casualties confirmed. It was impossible. "Show me the recording again," she commanded. Commander Thexvor activated the playback from the surviving ship's sensors. The footage showed what appeared to be a simple mining operation, transforming into a military fortress in minutes. Asteroids that had looked empty suddenly bristled with weapons. Civilian ships revealed hidden armor and military-grade systems. "How long have they been preparing for this?" Velnara asked quietly. "Intelligence suggests at least 5 years for this specific installation," Thexvor replied. "But some of the technology appears much older. They may have been militarizing their mining operations for decades." The High Counselor felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries of conquest: doubt. "Assemble the punishment fleet, 5,000 ships. We will show these humans what happens when they resist the Velkari Empire." "Ma'am," her intelligence officer interrupted, "there's something else. We're receiving reports of ships appearing and disappearing throughout our outer systems, ships that match no known human designs." "What do you mean, appearing and disappearing?" "They seem to have stealth technology far beyond anything in our databases. They observe our fleet movements and vanish before our sensors can get proper readings." 3 systems away, Captain Ji-hoon Kang smiled as he watched Velkari ship searching for his vessel, the Silent Hunter. The stealth ship was less than a kilometer from the alien patrol craft, but its advanced cloaking systems made it invisible to their sensors. Intelligence Officer Soo-jin, "Are you receiving their communications?" Ji-hoon asked. Soo-jin Yu, a small woman with sharp features, looked up from her console. She had spent years learning Velkari language and customs while working undercover in their territory. Now that knowledge was proving invaluable. "Yes, Captain. They're reporting ghost contacts throughout their space. Their fleet commanders are getting nervous about ships they can't see." "Good. Fear is our best weapon right now. How many more observation posts do we need to activate?" 12 more systems, sir. Once they're all online, we'll have real-time intelligence on every Velkari military movement." Ji-hoon nodded. The humans had been watching the Velkari Empire for years, placing hidden observation posts and intelligence networks throughout their space. The aliens had never noticed because they had assumed humans were too primitive to operate beyond their own solar system. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, General Tai Hyono stood in the command center of the Solar Defense Corps, watching as the greatest military machine in human history came to full readiness. The walls displayed tactical screens showing the positions of thousands of defense platforms, mobile weapons, and hidden installations. "General," his aide reported, "the Velkari punishment fleet is moving toward our territory. Intelligence estimates 5,000 ships." "Excellent," Taehyun replied. "Are all asteroid defenses online?" "Yes, sir. Every rock in the belt bigger than a house is now an active weapons platform." The general looked at the display showing the asteroid belt. To outside observers, it appeared to be a collection of mining operations and natural space debris. In reality, it was the most heavily fortified region in known space. Humans had spent 50 years turning every asteroid into a potential weapon. What about the mobile platforms? 3,000 autonomous defense drones are positioned throughout the outer system, sir. They're disguised as shipping containers and maintenance equipment. Taehyun smiled grimly. Then let's show the Velkari what humans do when someone threatens our home. When the Velkari punishment fleet entered the outer edge of human space, they expected to face the same type of resistance they had encountered at the mining station. Instead, they found something much worse. Commander Thexvor commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Around him, 5,000 Velkari ships moved in perfect formation, ready to crush any human resistance, sir. Sensors are detecting multiple contacts throughout the asteroid belt, his tactical officer reported. Mining installations? Unknown. The readings are strange. Some of the asteroids appear to be moving under their own power. That was when the shooting started. What the Velkari had thought were stationary rocks suddenly came alive with weapon fire. Asteroids that had been drifting peacefully through space revealed themselves as mobile weapons platforms, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy several ships. Evasive maneuvers. Thexvor shouted as his ship shook from multiple impacts. Return fire on those asteroids. But destroying an asteroid with conventional weapons was nearly impossible, and the humans had reinforced theirs with military-grade armor. Meanwhile, more and more rocks began moving and shooting. The entire asteroid belt had become a living, breathing weapons system. Sir, we're receiving reports of ships appearing behind our formations, the communications officer called out. Small craft are launching suicide attacks on our larger vessels. Thexvor looked at his tactical display in horror. Hundreds of small human ships were materializing out of nowhere, attacking Velkari vessels with kamikaze tactics that no sane species would attempt. But the humans weren't just throwing their lives away. Each attack was precisely calculated to cause maximum damage. These humans are insane, his first officer muttered. No, Thexvor replied, watching as another group of human ships sacrificed themselves to destroy a Velkari cruiser. They're fighting like cornered animals. And cornered animals are the most dangerous opponents in the universe. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Velkari had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Every piece of space debris, every abandoned satellite, every seemingly innocent cargo container revealed itself as part of the human defense network. Captain Ji-hoon's stealth ships struck from ambush positions, disappearing before the Velkari could retaliate. Sujin's intelligence network provided perfect targeting data, allowing human forces to hit enemy weak points with surgical precision. But the most terrifying aspect of the battle wasn't the human weapons, it was the human behavior. Velkari survivors reported that human pilots smiled and laughed while flying suicide missions. They fought with a joy that terrified species who viewed combat as a necessary evil. They're not just defending their territory, one rescued Velkari pilot reported. They're enjoying this. They've been waiting for someone to give them an excuse for war. When the battle ended, the Velkari punishment fleet had lost 3,000 ships. The humans had lost 23 vessels and celebrated it as a victory. But more disturbing were the reports from Velkari survivors who had been captured. The humans didn't just destroy enemy ships, they studied them. Velkari crew members who had been rescued reported being questioned by human intelligence officers who knew more about Velkari technology and tactics than most Velkari officers did. How long have they been watching us? Velnara asked when she received the battle reports. Commander Thexvor, now commanding from a replacement flagship after his original ship was destroyed, could only shake his head. Intelligence believes they've had observation posts in our territory for at least 20 years, possibly longer. 20 years? And we never detected them? They're very good at appearing harmless, High Counselor. Their stealth technology is decades ahead of anything we've seen. Velnara looked at the casualty reports again. In 2 battles, the Velkari had lost over 3,000 ships while the humans had lost fewer than 50. It was the worst military defeat in Velkari history. Ma'am, her communications officer interrupted. We're receiving reports from our outer systems. Human ships have been spotted in Velkari territory, attacking our supply convoys. The High Counselor felt her blood turn cold. The humans are counterattacking? It appears so, ma'am. Our forces are reporting ghost ships that attack without warning and disappear before reinforcements can arrive. For the first time in her long life, Velnara understood what it meant to be prey instead of predator. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had declared war on the entire Velkari Empire, and they were winning. In the depths of space, more human ships prepared to carry the war beyond the Sol system. The species that everyone had underestimated was about to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened their home. Admiral Dong Hyun-shin stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Terran Vengeance, watching as his fleet prepared to leave the Sol system for the first time in decades. Behind him stretched a formation of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vessels that combined human engineering with technology captured from the Velkari. All ships report ready for departure. Admiral, Captain Hyewan Lim announced from her position at the tactical station. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Begin the jump sequence, Dong-hyun ordered. It's time to show the Velkari what happens when they threaten Earth. The human fleet vanished in flashes of light, heading toward Velkari space with the fury of a species that had been pushed too far. 3 days later, in the Velkari industrial system of Korath 9, workers at a mining station noticed something strange on their sensors. A group of ships had appeared at the edge of the system, but they weren't moving in normal attack patterns. Instead, they seemed to be hunting. Station Commander Velthus watched the display with growing concern. Are those ships heading toward the station? No, sir, his sensor operator replied. They appear to be targeting our supply convoys. They're intercepting cargo ships before they can reach the station. What type of ships are they? Unknown design, sir. They don't match anything in our database. That was when the first convoy died. The human ships moved with a precision that terrified the Velkari observers. They didn't waste time with warnings or demands for surrender. They simply appeared, destroyed their targets with overwhelming firepower, and disappeared back into the darkness of space. Send a distress signal to Fleet Command, Velthus ordered. Tell them we're under attack by unknown forces. But by the time help arrived, the human ships were gone. Only wreckage remained to show that 6 cargo vessels and their escort craft had been completely destroyed, Admiral Dong-hyun reviewed the battle reports from his fleet commanders as the Terran Vengeance moved toward its next target. The human strategy was simple but effective. Destroy the Velkari supply lines and force them to spread their remaining ships thin, trying to protect their territory. Admiral, Captain Hyewan reported, Intelligence Officer Su Jin has identified another high-value target. A Velkari fuel depot 3 systems from here. Defensive strength? Minimal. They're relying on patrol ships that can't match our firepower. Dong-hyun smiled coldly. Then let's pay them a visit. The attack on the fuel depot lasted only 20 minutes. The human ships appeared without warning, destroyed the facility and its defenders, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. But they left behind something that chilled every Velkari who saw it. A message broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Dong Hyun-shin of the Human Expeditionary Force. You entered our space without permission and attacked our people. Now you will learn the price of threatening humanity. We are coming for you, and we will not stop until your empire surrenders unconditionally. The message spread throughout Velkari space like wildfire. For the first time in their history, the Velkari were being hunted by an enemy they couldn't see coming. Meanwhile, Jin Wu Bei and his Special Forces team were conducting operations that the regular Velkari military couldn't even imagine. While the human fleet attacked industrial targets, Jin Wu's soldiers infiltrated Velkari worlds to gather intelligence and spread fear. Target acquired, Jin Wu whispered into his communicator as he watched a Velkari military commander enter a restaurant on the planet Keth Prime. Jin Wu and his team had been tracking this officer for 3 days, learning his routines and habits. The operation wasn't to kill the commander. It was to demonstrate that humans could reach anyone, anywhere in Velkari space. Jin Wu's team planted listening devices in the commander's home, copied all the data from his personal computer, and left a simple message on his desk. Humanity is watching. When the Velkari officer found the message the next morning, he immediately contacted security. But the investigation revealed something terrifying. The humans had been in his house for hours without triggering any alarms. They could have killed him easily but chose not to. The psychological impact was devastating. If humans could enter the home of a military commander on a heavily defended world, nowhere in Velkari space was safe. High Counselor Velnara read the intelligence reports with growing horror. Human forces were operating throughout the Empire, destroying supply lines, infiltrating secure facilities, and demonstrating technological capabilities that shouldn't exist. How many systems have reported human activity? She asked Commander Thexivor. 17 confirmed, possibly more, he replied. They're not trying to conquer territory. They're systematically destroying our ability to maintain our military. What about our defensive fleets? That's the problem, High Counselor. Every time we send ships to defend one system, the humans attack somewhere else. They seem to know our fleet movements before we make them. Velnara studied the tactical display showing Velkari space. Red markers indicated systems where human forces had been detected. There were so many markers that the map looked like it was bleeding. How is this possible? How can a single system species operate throughout our empire? Intelligence believes they've been preparing for this war for decades, Thexivor explained. They have observation posts, supply caches, and intelligence networks throughout our territory. We've been fighting an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves. The worst news came from the outer systems, where member species of the Velkari Empire were beginning to panic. 3 minor species had already requested permission to surrender individually to human forces, rather than continue fighting. They're offering to switch sides, Velnara said in disbelief. The humans are accepting their surrenders and guaranteeing their safety, Thexivor confirmed. They're not interested in conquest. They want to dismantle our empire piece by piece. Captain Haiwan commanded her ship through another successful raid, this time against a Velkari research station. The facility had been developing new weapons, but now its secrets belonged to humanity. Captain, her science officer reported, we've recovered the complete database from the research facility. This technology could improve our weapons by 30%. Excellent. Signal the fleet. We're moving to the next target. As the human ships prepared to jump to their next destination, Haiwan looked at the tactical display. The Velkari Empire covered dozens of systems and controlled millions of worlds, but their military was spread thin, trying to defend against attacks that could come from anywhere. Ma'am, her communications officer said, Admiral Dong Hyun is requesting all ship commanders for a strategy meeting. The meeting took place in hyperspace, with holographic projections allowing the fleet commanders to discuss their next moves while traveling between targets. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Dong Hyun began, our campaign has been more successful than projected. Velkari military effectiveness has dropped by 60%, and their supply lines are in chaos. What about their main battle fleets? Asked one of the captains. They're trapped defending their core systems, afraid to leave in case we attack their most important worlds. Meanwhile, we continue to destroy their ability to maintain those fleets. Jinwoo's image appeared on the display, reporting from deep inside Velkari territory. Admiral, my teams have confirmed that 3 more species want to surrender to us rather than continue fighting. The Velkari Empire is beginning to collapse from within. Dong Hyun nodded grimly. Then it's time for the final phase. We're going to offer the Velkari one last chance to surrender. If they refuse, we'll show them what human warfare looks like when we stop holding back. The message was broadcast throughout Velkari space from every human ship simultaneously. People of the Velkari Empire, this is Admiral Dong Hyun Shin. Your leaders made the mistake of attacking humanity without provocation. We have demonstrated that your military cannot protect you from our forces. We offer you this choice. Surrender now, and we will treat you fairly. Continue fighting, and we will show you why humanity survived every threat our planet could create. You have 72 hours to decide. High Counselor Velnara looked at the message with despair. Her mighty empire, which had controlled nearly half the galaxy, was being destroyed by a species she had dismissed as primitives. What are our options? She asked her remaining advisors. We could try to negotiate, one suggested. The humans have made it clear that only unconditional surrender is acceptable. Another replied. Velnara closed her eyes. In less than a month, the Velkari Empire had gone from confident conquerors to desperate defenders of a crumbling civilization. And the humans weren't even using their full strength yet. Send a message to the human admiral, she said quietly. Request terms for surrender. The age of Velkari dominance was ending, replaced by the rise of humanity as the galaxy's newest and most dangerous power. Governor Sung-Min Yoon walked through the corridors of what had once been the Velkari Imperial Palace on Corveth Prime. The massive structure now served as the headquarters for the human colonial administration of former Velkari territory. The irony wasn't lost on him. 6 months ago, he had been managing mining operations in the asteroid belt. Now he governed 47 star systems. Governor, his aide approached with a data pad. The monthly reports from all occupied systems are ready for your review. Shungmin accepted the pad and scanned through the numbers. Industrial output was returning to pre-war levels. Crime was down 60% from the chaotic period immediately after the Velkari surrender. Most surprisingly, civilian satisfaction ratings were higher than they had been under Velkari rule. "Any problems I need to address?" he asked, system administrator. Kim reported some unrest on Veltar 3 and the Buying. Local population is concerned about human intentions for their world. Send a message to administrator Kim. Remind him that we're administrators, not conquerors. The local population should be governing themselves within 6 months. This was the part that confused most alien species. Humans had won the most decisive military victory in galactic history, but instead of enslaving the defeated empire, they were helping former Velkari territories become independent. It made no sense to species that viewed conquest as the natural right of the victor. Across the galaxy, in the intelligence headquarters on Luna, Director Na-young Kim reviewed reports that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Her brother Hyunwoo had once stood alone before the Galactic Council, delivering warnings that alien species had laughed at. Now those same species were requesting human protection. "Director," her chief analyst reported, "we have formal requests for defense agreements from 12 species this week. That brings the total to 41 species who want human military protection. What are they offering in return? Technology sharing, trade agreements, and intelligence cooperation. The Zephyrian Republic is even offering to share their quantum communications technology." Na-young smiled. The same quantum communications that humans had been trying to develop for decades was now being freely offered by species who feared being left defenseless in a galaxy where humanity was the dominant military power. Accept the Zephyrian offer, but make sure they understand that protection agreements work both ways. We'll defend them, but they'll also defend us if needed. The truth was humans didn't need protection from anyone anymore, but letting other species feel useful was good diplomacy. Admiral Woojin Lee, son of the legendary Admiral Boram Lee, commanded the new patrol fleets that kept peace throughout former Velkari space. His ships were a fusion of human engineering and captured alien technology, making them the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from a civilian convoy in the Korath system. Pirates are attacking a refugee transport. Response time to intercept? 18 minutes at maximum acceleration. All ships prepare for emergency jump. Let's remind these pirates why attacking civilians is a bad idea." The human response was swift and overwhelming. The pirate ships, which had been terrorizing trade routes for months, found themselves facing military vessels that outclassed them in every way. The battle lasted 7 minutes, ending with the pirates either destroyed or surrendering. But the real message was sent to the galaxy. Human protection meant something. Species under human defense agreements were safe from any threat. In a comfortable prison cell on Earth, former High Counselor Velnara worked as an advisor to the Human Defense Council. It was a strange fate for someone who had once commanded an empire, but she had proven useful in helping humans understand galactic politics. "The hegemony is requesting a meeting," she informed General Tae-hyun-oh during their weekly briefing. "They want to discuss mutual cooperation with humanity." The same hegemony that refused to help enforce territorial boundaries 6 months ago? The same one. They're afraid that without Velkari military power to balance human strength, you'll decide to conquer the rest of the galaxy. General Tae-hyun laughed. "If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it already. We just want to be left alone to develop in peace. You may want to be left alone, but the galaxy won't let you. Every species is now measuring their policies against how humanity might react. You've become the dominant force in galactic politics without even trying." This was perhaps the strangest aspect of human victory. They had destroyed the Velkari Empire not to replace it, but to eliminate a threat to their home world. Now they found themselves responsible for maintaining peace throughout a region of space larger than some entire civilizations. Ambassador Hyunwoo returned to the Galactic Council chamber where he had once stood alone. delivering warnings that everyone ignored. This time the chamber was different. The Velkari delegation was gone, replaced by representatives from the new Free Worlds Alliance. Half the species present had defense agreements with humanity. Honored members, Hyunwoo began, I come before you today to propose the Terran Accord, a new framework for galactic peace and cooperation. The chamber was completely silent. Every delegate knew that this wasn't really a proposal. It was humanity announcing the new rules for galactic civilization. The Terran Accord is based on simple principles, Hyunwoo continued. Respect for territorial sovereignty, protection for civilian populations, and peaceful resolution of disputes. Any species that accepts these principles will have humanity's friendship and protection. Any species that violates them will face humanity's military response. High Counselor Zathara of the Orion Federation raised her hand to speak. Ambassador Kim, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't abuse this power? Hyunwoo's expression was calm but firm. The same guarantee you had that the Velkari wouldn't abuse their power, none. The difference is that humanity has demonstrated that we prefer peace to conquest. We could have enslaved the Velkari Empire, but instead we helped its member species achieve independence. And if we refuse to accept the Terran Accord, then you're free to make that choice. Humanity will not force any species to accept our protection, but we also will not protect species that choose to remain outside the Accord. The message was clear. Join the human-led order and be safe, or remain independent and face whatever threats emerged in a galaxy where humanity was the dominant military power. Within 3 months, every major species had signed the Terran Accord. The age of galactic warfare was ending, replaced by an era of human-enforced peace. In the command center on Luna, Admiral Bo-Ram Lee looked at the strategic display showing human territory. The Sol system was no longer an isolated outpost. It was the center of a network that stretched across half the galaxy. Admiral, her aide reported, intelligence confirms that the last Velkari holdout systems have accepted incorporation into the Free Worlds Alliance. The transition is complete, Bo-Ram nodded. The war that everyone thought would destroy humanity had instead made them the galaxy's protectors. It wasn't a role they had wanted, but it was one they would fulfill. Send a message to all fleet commanders, she ordered. Remind them that our mission is to protect, not to conquer. We are guardians now, not warriors. But even as she spoke those words, Bo-Ram knew the truth. Humanity had become the galaxy's dominant species not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that threatening Earth was the last mistake any species would ever make. The galaxy had learned to fear human kindness, because it came with the promise that any abuse of that kindness would be met with overwhelming force. Peace was maintained not through love, but through the certainty that breaking it would bring consequences no species could survive. In the end, the Velkari Empire's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human military strength. It was underestimating human determination to protect what they considered theirs. They had ignored the warning, entered human territory, and discovered too late that some species are most dangerous when they're cornered. The galaxy would remember that lesson for generations to come. Humanity had become its reluctant guardians, and the stars were safer for it.